Vaibhav this side, and in this video I want to share with you why motivation is flawed and why watching motivational videos are doing more harm to you than good, and why solely relying on the motivation is futile when it comes down to achieving your goal, and why you should really cultivate more of discipline and integrate it in your daily life. This is something that I have learned in my journey, and essentially understanding that if you want to have a firm intention toward your goals and actually want to move toward them, motivation is just not enough. Also, by the end of the video, I am going to give you a system that you can use to really be more disciplined with your actions without fighting with yourself, without feeling any internal resistance, right? With that, let's get started. So today I want to talk about motivation and why it is futile when it comes down to achieving your goal. Now, first of all, what I want you to know is that motivation is nothing but just an emotion, right? Because if you see, just like any other emotion, you feel motivated to do something for a while, and when motivation isn't there, you procrastinate. So the problem with motivation is just like any other emotion, motivation also comes and goes, because this is the thing about the emotions. They are very, very unpredictable, right? You cannot solely rely on the motivation because of its unpredictable nature, right? So to give an example, when I was writing my book, for first few days, I used to go on YouTube and watch a particular motivational video. And after finishing watching that video, I used to get fired up and started writing my book. But after 2-3 days, when I watched that video again, I realized that I'm not feeling the same level of motivation. So I scrolled through YouTube and searched for some other videos, and they were good, but not good enough to stimulate me to that same level of motivation. And I ended up binge watching 6 or 7 motivational video, and then I stumbled upon some podcast of a successful person, and I watched it for an hour, got a little bit pumped up, and sat for like 10 minutes, writing my book, and given up and went back to watching other videos, and eventually ended up doing nothing for the day. Now, why that happens is because when you watch a motivational video, we get this dopamine spike in our brain, which makes us feel good and motivated for a while, and eventually we get addicted to this feeling. And this dopamine acts as a reward hormone, right? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with motivation or learning from the success of the others, but the moment we need the reward feeling of motivation to get started, wanting those feeling before even doing the real work, then we are in the serious trouble. So here's what happened to our brain when you watch a motivational video, right? Your brain gets this dopamine spike, right? Because in 5 or 10 minutes of the video, you will get at least one idea that hits your mind, and after getting impressed by that, there will be this dopamine rush in your brain, and we get charged up like we are going to crush our goals. But here is the catch: this rush is just temporary. After some time, we get back to our old normal state, but this rush, this high get imprinted on our mind, and so our brain craves for more that high again, and you find another video, another course to get charged up again. But over time, you get addicted to a certain level of stimulus. You get used to it, and then you need something more, something extra stimulus to feel the same way, and that's when you get into this trap of binge watching motivational video. Then we share them, then we discuss them, and then we do nothing. And this cycle repeats itself on daily basis without you actually doing any meaningful work, right? You reward yourself for doing nothing as you feel some sort of accomplishment just by watching those videos. So this is the problem. It's good to watch these videos once in a while, they are fun, but problem is that we consume them like Netflix. We consume them without ever doing anything. I see people sharing inspirational quote in their WhatsApp status, sharing these videos like they are applying them in their everyday life, but they don't. They just post them to release their inner frustration of not taking actions, and while sharing, they feel like that they are accomplishing something. It just become their coping mechanism for not taking action. If you are not going to apply any of this advice, why bother pretending like you are going to do something? Because people who actually put in the work and work behind the scene, they don't even bother doing all of this. They are too busy with their goals and in their life chasing their goal. Most successful people that I have seen in my life, they are not even on social media. They don't even have time for all of this, because the truth is real results are achieved by doing consistent and focused work. All the work that you do behind the scene, being immersed in the process of putting the work and making slow and steady progress is what leads to the success. But in this day and age, we want instant gratification. We expect to go from 0 to 100 real quick and set up these unrealistic expectations that one day somehow we will reach there, and that day never comes. So now let's talk about dopamine a little bit and how our brain gets wired to it, right? So as I said, dopamine is a neurotransmitter that makes us feel good and motivated. It is released when we eat our favorite food, meet someone new, or we win a trophy or accomplish a particular goal. Dopamine is also the reason people become hooked and addicted to drugs, substances, and other modes of behavior. It's a reward system for the brain and our body because it boosts mood and attention. It motivates us in a specific way, including particular behaviors, the physical action, and although it's very normal for dopamine level to fluctuate, low dopamine is linked to low enthusiasm, low attention span, and decreased motivation. So in a nutshell, dopamine can drive us to a successful outcome because it motivates us. So the way it works is that we get a particular trigger and then an automatic behavior follows. And then we get the rewards. And please know that this behavior will always be aligned with what the brain sees as the biggest reward, right? Not the actual longer term reward that will benefit you. So to give you an example, you get a notification on your phone, this is a trigger, and then you pick up your phone, which is your automatic action, automatic behavior, and then you check the notification and see who has posted on Facebook and what they have posted, or you read the message on the WhatsApp, which is the reward, right? Or to give you another example, let's say someone is a smoker and he feels bored or at a specific time in a day. He had this urge to smoke. This urge is the trigger, and this urge arises, this automatic behavior, it arises at a specific time or a particular situation like boredom, and then he go out and smoke, which is the automatic behavior, and he get this nicotine hit and his brain releases the dopamine, which is the reward. So trigger leads to execution of a specific behavior and automatic behavior, and then we get the reward, right? So reward follow once we do this automatic behavior. And this reward is nothing but this dopamine. Now, what really happens is that when we set up a goal for ourselves, our brain sees it and says, okay, I can do that. Like let's say you want to finish a certain project which will be beneficial for you. So your brain gets onboarded and says, okay, I can do that. It looks promising to me. It will be beneficial for me. But when it comes down to really taking the action, the brain thinks from the present self vantage point and what the immediate payoff the present self can experience. It might be on board with the benefit of the long-term goals, but it holds more value regarding the present moment satisfaction. And that's why you do something which can reward you immediately rather than in the long term. That's why you prefer watching YouTube videos or browsing through social media, because your brain prefers instant gratification. And that's why you procrastinate to do the work which will actually produce the results for you. And over time, it creates certain neural connection in our brain and wires you in a certain way where you want the immediate reward. And the more and more you act this way, the more you feel resistance toward putting in the work and getting the job done, right? So now let's talk about how we can exploit this neurochemistry of our brain and use this dopamine to our advantage to get things done and create a system that you can apply on the daily basis and use the dopamine reward in such a manner that this will rewire your brain to execute the actions in a effortless manner. The actions that are going to actually produce the result and get you toward the goal that you want to achieve. So the step number 1 is that define that goal that you want to achieve and define the process that will lead you toward your goal, right? So the goal and process. Now, why this is important is because our mind loves predictability. If your mind doesn't know what it needs to focus on, it's going to be all over the place. So you need to have a defined goal that you want to achieve, that you want to strive toward, and the process that will take you toward that goal. Now, for the process, if you are not sure about it, just do what you know now. It could be anything. So to give an example, when I was writing my book, I had no idea what I want to share in it. My goal was clear that I want to write a book, but very vague idea about the actual content of it. So what I did was I started writing what I knew at that time. I just started with the first chapter. It was very random. I was typing all the random ideas, but eventually just by sitting and writing, I started to get more and more clarity, and I ended up writing many more chapters, right? So rather than waiting for some inspiration to come to you one day, just start with what you know now, what process you know now, and eventually the right path, the right process will come to you, right? Step number 2, when you have the goal and the process clear, decide on the when, where, and what. Now, what do I mean by that is that when I was writing my book, I decided on the time, place, and the specific task. So I had set the time, set the when, the time of 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., where at my desk, and what, the content that I intended to write on that day. What it does is that now we have no confusion left for the last minute, because our mind hates the unknown. Our mind hates confusions because confusion is fear, confusion is pain for the mind, where the brain has to spend extra energy, and our brain likes to conserve the energy, and we are helping it by making everything very, very clear to it. So what you want to work on the next day, plan it out the day before, because if you decide on what you have to do, what you have to work on that day, right there, you will be confused, and the action that will come out will be unpredictable. And as I said, our mind hates unpredictability. So plan a day before what you need to work on tomorrow, where preferably at your desk or where you normally work, and the time. And once you set the time, don't compromise with it. Okay. And the step number 3, set yourself some sort of trigger, right, to execute the action. Now, why we are doing it? Because we want to rewire our brain to automate the actions, right, that will attain success for you. So in my example, I had a set of affirmation that I have created for myself, and 5 minutes before the set time, I used to read them and feel them being the reality. And those affirmations acted as the trigger for me to start writing the book. So you can have any kind of trigger. If it could be meditation, a particular song or music that you can connect with. And once you have this trigger set and executed, start working on the task of the day. And while doing that, remove yourself from any possible distraction, especially your phone or social media. And this is really, really important, because social media is extremely distracting and extremely addictive because of the reward system in the brain. We get this dopamine spike when we get a notification on our phone. We don't want to deplete our dopamine reserve on these things. Rather, we want to have them to motivate us to perform the tasks, right? So keep your environment optimal for the highest performance without any distraction. And step number 4, once you have done the task of the day, reward yourself. This is very, very crucial, because we are trying to rewire our mind to know that once it will execute the action that is required to achieve our goal, it is going to get the reward. In that way, our mind will be more inclined toward doing the task, as now it knows that it will be rewarded later. Now, in my case, whenever I set out to work on a project, I pick up a TV series, and as I complete the task of the day, I reward myself by watching a few episodes of that series. And as a matter of fact, I completed the whole Big Bang Theory series while writing my book. Because when you watch it after completing the task of the day, you don't feel guilty for binge watching it. Rather, you feel really, really good, as completing the task itself gives you this dopamine spike, and then we reward ourselves even more. It is more like a satisfactory reward that we have deserved than a guilt, So as you can see that in this system, we are manipulating our brain by giving it trigger, automatic behavior, and then the reward. We are using the understanding of our own brain and how it functions and creating the necessary steps in a coherent way so that it may not resist the action, and we can have high chances to stick with this system for long enough without feeling deprived of all the fun, because this system is comprised of perfect balance between work and the fun. So it shouldn't be all the work and no play during our journey. Okay, so once you have completed task of the day, give yourself some sort of reward. If you are picking up a TV series like me, pick up something which is fun to watch. Pick up something which is light-hearted rather than some violent intense drama. Or you can reward yourself with food that you like, or it could be anything, but make sure reward comes only after getting the job done for the day. And once implemented correctly, you will notice how efficiently you are able to do the things, and you are able to stick to it, and you are moving effortlessly toward the goals that you desire. And with that, I'm concluding this video. Leave me a comment down below to let me know if that is useful, or if you have anything to ask. I will be more than happy to answer them. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, much love and peace.